Every last hit, every bounty rune that we pick up, every kill, every rampage, every victory, it's all experienced through the lens of the camera in Dota 2. And good camera control is something that everybody should strive for, because Dota is a game of information, and the more information that you can gather, the better decisions that you can make. So thank you for tuning into this video by Dota Alchemy. We're going to be talking about all of the camera options that are available to you in Dota 2 and how to customize them to give you the best viewer experience. And to help us out with that, this video is being sponsored by Alchemy, who provided us with a really sick gaming mouse that we're going to give you a quick preview of right before the video starts. From the replays that we have analyzed over the last 3 or 4 months, there have been a lot of people with really difficult to control cameras, it seems. Either the camera is difficult for them to control, or it's just not set up very well, because it seems like they're having trouble keeping track of what's going on the screen. And I think that the camera and the camera settings have a lot to do with that. So I'm going to go over a series of camera settings and just kind of explore what you can do with the camera and talk about it. And hopefully you will be able to play around with these settings and then set your camera up to be perfect for your setup. And I do want to start with the setup. So for this video, we are using the Alchemy GM F1 mouse. It is a 5000 DPI FPS mouse, and it has a bunch of different DPI settings. So you can set it, I don't know if you can really tell, but it's red currently. And if you scroll through using these two mouse buttons, and these are all different DPI settings, which will change the speed at which the mouse moves across the screen. So whatever mouse you have is going to affect your camera movement in the game. So I just want to demonstrate, this is the purple setting. You can see that I'm really not moving my hand very much, but the cursor is flying across the screen, right? So this is pretty difficult for me to control. I use a much less, so I have to move my hand more, which I can demonstrate now. This is the lowest setting, the red on this particular mouse. And you can see that to get the cursor to move, I really have to move my hand. And so this might be familiar if you are like an FPS player, for example. A lot of FPS players like to aim with their elbow, and so they'll use a much lower sensitivity and have to move their arms to actually aim with the mouse. I personally like the setting of the green. This is just kind of a nice, comfortable to me. It feels like I can get around with little wrist movements, but if I want to do something bigger, I can also move my arm. And I kind of just like to be in the middle of the sensitivity and the DPI range, because that gives me the most control in my personal opinion. So with the mouse settings out of the way, on the actual mouse, let's go ahead and take a look at the camera settings in the game. And those are found under the options menu right here. So there's actually 2 different screens that you're going to want to look at. You're going to want to look at the regular options screen, and then you're also going to want to play with the advanced options. Right off the bat, you can see right here, we've got some camera settings. We have edge pan, we have reverse camera grip, we have center camera on hero respawn, disable camera zoom, hold select hero to follow. So these things are more sort of like game options as opposed to the actual camera control, other than, I guess, edge pan. Of course, if we turn this off, then we can no longer move the camera screen by going to the edge. So I play with edge pan on. I know in past we have made a video about how grip is really important, and I actually have both. So I like to edge pan for the most part during the game, but if there are certain moments where I needed the camera to select a certain part, of the map or of my screen, I also have camera grip bound to the center mouse button, which then allows me to hold that down and reposition the camera wherever I want it to be. I think this is definitely a personal preference thing. However, I will say that we put out a survey a little bit ago on YouTube asking what people use to control the camera, and I think there was something like 12 to 15% of people said that they use WASD to control their camera, which I commend you for being able to play Dota with those types of camera controls, but I would highly recommend that you get all of your camera movement onto just your mouse hand, because you need your hotkeys on your left hand, or if you're left-handed, then vice versa, but you need one hand to control hotkeys and you need one hand to control the camera. And if you're trying to control camera with your arrow keys or your WASD keys and then also hit hotkeys at the same time for spells and stuff, I really can't imagine how you would ever fight effectively or even just play lanes effectively, because there's just too much that one hand has to do things efficiently. Okay, so let's go back into these settings then. You can experiment with these if you want. I really recommend center camera on hero respawn. You turn it off, because what this will do is if your camera is somewhere else, let's say you're dead and you're looking around the map to see what's going on, maybe you have your camera on the tower that you want to TP to and you need to TP there immediately because there's a fight, and then you have center the camera on hero respawn and you click TP as soon as you respawn, chances are your camera will have moved to the fountain and you will literally just TP to the fountain, wasting your TP and potentially losing your team a fight and even the game. So turn that option off. It's complete garbage. There's no reason for you to have to do that. You can always just, center the camera on your hero using a double tap on whatever key select that is. So yeah, turn that option off. Disable camera zoom. I mean, I don't even know if this really does anything, I guess. Okay, so I have this turned off because sometimes you accidentally scroll in and then you can't get it back out, which is where I'm at right now. So that's an option that we're definitely going to be disabling, and nice. So we disable it and it resets the zoom. That's good stuff. Now hold select hero to follow. So my select hero key is 1. So if I hold 1, I follow the trail, and I move my mouse around, then my camera will follow my hero. And I can still move the camera around the hero, but it will never allow me to edge pan all the way away from my hero, which is kind of nice. So you can get a good view. Now I'm using grip, and you actually can move all the way to the edge, but you still cannot get your hero out of the screen if you're holding the hero select key. And this is really good for blocking creeps, because if you hold that down, then it's very easy to not have to, if you weren't holding this down and you're trying to block creeps, you're doing this, and then your hero gets over here, and then you have to edge pan and then go back to blocking. Instead, just hold the key down, and then you're able to just move your mouse and move your hero at the same time, and the blocking becomes a lot easier, as you can kind of see. So the next option that we're going to look at is camera speed. Put camera speed up to 8,000. The camera moves pretty fast. That's the max camera speed. And I put camera speed to 2,000. You can see, oh my goodness, it is very slow to move. I'm moving my camera as far to the edge of the screen as possible, and it is just not moving very fast. The camera speed is not going to be affected by your mouse DPI. This is simply the speed at which the camera will pan from one side to the other or up and down. And so whatever DPI you have, that's just how fast your cursor moves across the screen. The camera speed is how fast your camera will move across the map. So the default is about here. I believe that's what this tick mark is meant to signify. So about 3,000. I personally play around 54, 62. So on the faster end, but not all the way maxed out. And this just gives me a nice responsive camera, but not one where if I go to the edge of my screen, then I'm just like halfway across the map by the time I realize what I'm looking at. So again, this is very personal preference. And for me, with this DPI on the mouse and with the speed at which I want to look at things, and me using edge panning, I like this particular camera setting. Again, we can just compare. If we go all the way up to 8,000, you can see even just a little bit of touch on the side of the screen is really going to have the camera flying around. All right, so let's go on to the advanced options where there are still some more camera settings that we can play with to get the custom feel that we want to get and the maximum amount of control over our camera, which is such an important part of Dota 2. So right here, we've got some more camera options. We've got left click activates camera grip. Obviously, I don't have this enabled because camera grip is bound to my mouse wheel click instead. Enable screen shake. I know that a lot of pro players, I believe, do not like this because when an echo slam or something hits you, then your screen shakes. I have it on just because I like feeling immersed in the game, I suppose. Maybe it's a mistake on my part. But it doesn't bother me. I think that it adds to the experience. And so I have screen shake on. Smooth drag camera while spectating is not relevant to your normal gameplay, so you don't even really need to worry about this unless you're trying to be a caster or something like that. All right, so this option right here, camera deceleration, is somewhat of a revelation to me. I've always just played with this on 50. As you can see, the speed at which the camera comes to a rest after moving, larger number equates to a faster stop. That is very, very important. I always thought that this should just be at 50 because you don't want your camera to be, you move it here and then it just flies off in whatever direction you started moving it towards and never stops. So as you can see, this is 50. So it does not go anywhere farther than I move my mouse. I started to have some problems where I felt like it was almost like too many micro adjustments were required because I would move and then I would get quite far enough. The camera would stop too soon and I would have to keep, jerking it a little bit more to get what I actually wanted to be on screen. If you put it all the way at the bottom, which is 5 by default, you can see that if I move my hand, the camera, there's like a lag time before it stops when I move it in one direction or another. You can see how it sort of like settles on the location that you move your mouse to, where it's a lot smoother. You don't see that jerky quality of the camera. And so this is kind of nice. However, I do notice that there's even a little bit of lag time to get the camera started, which I really don't like. And so you don't probably want to have it this low. I know I personally don't. 5 is too slow for me. And so I've played with a bunch of different settings. I tried about 30 and you can see that it is much faster to stop. It feels a little bit floaty. It's not quite just instantaneous stopping, but it's a lot faster than it was just a second ago. And so I personally have figured out that 15 camera decel is exactly where I want to be. And you can see that it gives me a little bit of this floatiness of when I'm moving my camera around. But to me, it feels smooth. It feels like if I were to try and center my camera on a location, I can do it pretty accurately because there's this little bit of lag time where the camera is not immediately stopping when I stop my hand, and that allows me to kind of like micro readjust in the middle of that decel to get it exactly where I want it to be. And that might sound a little bit complicated, but basically all I'm saying is that this gives you a little bit of extra adjustment time with where you're moving your camera. So if you over adjust by edge panning a little bit too far one way or the other, it allows you to kind of correct that before the camera actually stops, and then you have to start the camera moving again. As soon as I switched to this, I felt like I had much better control over what was going on with my camera in fights, especially in these really tense moments. That's where, being able to find what's going on the map all over the place is super important. Being able to look and keep what you need to have in your field of vision. And that really all just comes down to camera control. And I challenge you to go into a game in Dota TV and just check out some of the top players. Check out your favorite players in these games and just kind of observe what their camera feels like. Some people are very frantic with their camera movement, or seemingly frantic, and they're all over the place. They're constantly relocating and doing this kind of stuff, and it seems really crazy, but that's just how they are comfortable viewing the battle. So I do want to give a special shout out to Alchemy again for sponsoring this channel and this video in particular, and sending me this pretty dope gaming mouse. It is comfortable, it works well, it has a true 5000 DPI optical sensor, polling rates up to 1000 Hertz, 20G mouse acceleration, and no interpolation. It is a serious mouse for serious gamers. And I mean, just look at this thing. It's got flashing lights. Hold on, let me turn this off real quick. Fully customizable RGB lighting. And it's customizable with the Alchemy G-Aim Control Center, which is a piece of software that comes with the mouse and will integrate with their keyboards and other peripherals that are coming out in the future. So if you want to check out this particular mouse, the GM F1 by Alchemy, the link is in the description below. Show them some love. They're showing us some love, and we definitely appreciate that. And as always, thank you all for watching. Thank you for your time. I hope this video was helpful, and we will see you in another video very soon.